What's up, y'all? You know what time it is. It's about to be that time.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Savage.
And we're back. One Piece 1076 is out, and Oda decided that he wanted to do the Hollywood reboot of Chapter 1. Everything is bigger, literally, and better. Maybe. We've got, I don't want to say Dollar Tree Luffy and Dollar Tree Makino. I would say that this is more like just the Norse reboot. This is Norse Luffy, Norse Makino. It's just different. Eustace Captain Kidd is very much the reinterpretation of Haguma the Bear. The 8 million berry man, okay? You gotta be scared of him, right? Now it's just 3 billion. We're talking about a guy who made his entire identity that he fought the red-haired pirates, that he was going back after the red-haired pirates. Only to find out that the red-haired pirates are like, oh, that guy. Yeah, I kind of remember him, right?
Savage.
Kid never even met Shanks. Let's take a minute to process that. Kid never even met Shanks.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
Probably got shot by Ben Beckman from a mile away. And literally made his entire identity like, I need to get revenge on on Shanks. Like, Shanks didn't do this to you, bro. Okay? You did this to yourself. How far with the Chapter 1 parallels are we going to go? Like, is Kid going to end up kidnapping this kid from Elbaf? Forcing Shanks' hand? Will a gigantic sea beast eat Kid? Like, really, like, how far are we going with this? I'd be okay with any of those scenarios, to be honest. You know, we've talked about one of the best dramas to come out of Kid's existence would actually be his death. As long as Killer survives, we can use him as a vehicle for that grief. Killer is a much better character than Kid. You know, not to hate on Kid too much. Like, Kid he's decent, but Oda has chosen not to flesh him out for a reason. And it's because his plan was to always kill Kid and use Killer as, you know, this vehicle for a guy who has to rise up after his captain has been killed. And was the plan always to have Shanks kill this guy after Luffy had had some sort of rivalry with him to hype up the eventual fight between Luffy and Shanks, to give Luffy something to kind of mull over, like, I love Shanks, like, I know Shanks, but then he killed Kid, like, would Luffy rile against that enough to, like, make that the entire identity of a fight between Shanks as well? That's a question. I don't know if it's entirely strong enough, but I mean, it's something that Luffy could fight for. They're gonna fight regardless. And like I've always said, it's gonna be on site. But either way, talking about this, like, I am so excited. So excited. Like, my favorite part of the chapter was seeing Dorry and Brogy and then Oimo and Kashi on top of that. You know, in all of the Elbaf predictions that I've been making on this channel, I've always said we are going to get Dorry and Brogy, Oimo and Kashi back in this arc.
Another one.
And not only that, they have a prior relationship with Shanks. Let's get into all of the possibilities of how that came to be and everything else. First, like, comment, subscribe if you're feeling the vibe. Here we go. During the Little Garden arc, after the first battle between Dorry and Brogy, we get to kind of sit with them for a little bit before Dorry, like, drinks the ale that has been spiked by Mr. 5 and Mr. 3. Vivi and Luffy ask Dorry, like, hey, is it true? Like, do we have to be here a year? Like, come on, man. Like, come on, let, you know, give you the game. And Dorry is basically like, hey, see all the human skulls around? I mean, usually most humans die before the log pose sets. Okay, they're either eaten by dinosaurs, they choose to fight the giants, and anybody who does that, they definitely die. And then Luffy says, well, they have a conversation about the log pose that he has that points to Elbaf, and Luffy's like, well, that's not where we're going. We're going to Alabasta. And then they basically laugh it off like, well, maybe we'll just sail out of here and let luck decide. This sends Dorry into like a laughing phase. And I've always read this as other people have come to Little Garden. They have been here. They've met these guys and they left. Now, the implication here is this section of the story is very Roger-centric. You know, we had just met Crocus. He was the doctor for Roger, but, you know, as you're reading back then, you don't really put all of these pieces together. But if we dive a little deeper and we look between the lines here, this could be read as Roger was on Little Garden. Now, I love the idea of Shanks and his crew landing on Little Garden, staying there for a little bit, meeting Dorry and Brogy, kind of having their own little adventure like Luffy and the crew did, and then setting off and testing their own luck, right? Like, I like that. I think that that's more interesting, but the thing that actually makes sense, the way that Oda probably will go, is that Roger was on Little Garden, and that he picked up Crocus and followed the exact same path to Laugh-Tale that Luffy is doing right now. And this actually calls back to what Crocus was saying at Reverse Mountain. Because before Luffy and the gang take Miss Wednesday, Vivi, and Mr. Nine to Whiskey Peak, Crocus is like, this is the only place where you get to choose which way you go. You realize that, right? Like, you've got 7 paths here, and this is the only time that you're going to be able to choose. Do you want to go to Whiskey Peak? Are you sure that that's where you want to go? And I've always thought that Crocus was saying this from the perspective of, I know you're going to Little Garden. You know, after doing a reread and everything, and you know that Little Garden is the island after Whiskey Peak. It's basically like, he's basically saying, hey guys, you're gonna be on Dinosaur Island for a year. Like, is that what you want? So I think Crocus was there. Roger was there. They met Dorry and Brogy. They probably had a great drinking fest. Everybody got along. Shanks might have been inspired in the same way that Usopp was about everything, you know, that has to do with Elbaf. Maybe there was a promise to meet again someday. They didn't have any sort of eternal pose. And then Roger just wanted to test his own luck, especially considering that he was only going to die a year later to begin with. He did not have a year. So they get off and sail away, and then they probably didn't have to worry about the goldfish or any other like sea beasts that would have been around the area because Roger was that dude. So he would have been able to just take care of that, Conqueror's Haki, whatever. They're on their way. Dorry and Brogy keep fighting for another 22 years, but always keep it in the back of their minds that they really liked that one crew that hung out with them for a little bit. And Dorry is sitting there laughing like, hey, this little guy kind of reminds me of Roger also. You know, and maybe Shanks and like those guys. Any way you look at this, that is the easiest way to explain why Shanks and Dorry and Brogy would have thought each other were dead, right? Shanks would have looked at it from the perspective of, hey, they've been fighting for 78 years. At some point, somebody is going to win, right? Winning means one of them is going to be dead. There's always the possibility that one of them was going to be alive there. But Dorry and Brogy probably had no faith. You know, they had faith, but didn't necessarily anticipate that Roger and his crew would have actually made it out of there, that their luck would have worked. But they still appreciate that sense of pride. And even the way that Dorry and Brogy help Luffy and the gang at the end, and the way that they like attack their mental view of what their pride means and everything like that, that idea is exemplified essentially in chapter 1 and all of, you know, and everything that Luffy is being taught by Shanks, with specifically the Haguma storyline. Because in that regard, this is probably something that Shanks learned from Dorry and Brogy, learned from Elbaf. You know, this idea and this sense of pride, it may not be something that Roger actually instilled in him, but it was actually like this warrior mentality that he got from them, right? That, hey, you can spill drink on me or whatever, but you don't hurt my friends, you don't hurt my pride. My pride is my people, which I think is a larger theme and narrative that goes throughout One Piece to begin with. So essentially what we need here is a situation for Kid to actually trample on Shanks' pride, to trample with his people. There's a possibility that Shanks like tries to leave and just lets his grand fleet, you know, his extended commanders, you know, like Whitebeard had them too. They showed up to Marineford, you know, this is like Whitey Bay, Doma, the Calvin brothers, Lightning Magai, you know, there's a whole bunch of them. This is what Shanks has here. These are the guys that are hugging him at the end. They're the ones that are going to fight Kid right now, unless Kid can get onto the island and like actually do some damage to these giants, kidnap the Kid, something like that. He has to force Shanks' hand at this point. Singular.
Savage.
Yeah. The red-haired one-armed boys are back at it again. Can we take a moment to just appreciate like that spread of all of the red-haired pirates with Dorry, Brogy, Oimo, Akashi behind them like that? I love that. Recency bias, but I do like it more than the Marineford spread of Shanks' crew. I don't know, I love this. After film Red and like just over time, not to a, you know, an alarming degree, but we know these guys' names now. They feel a little more fleshed out. They feel more like people rather than just like extras behind Shanks. Like when that happened in Marineford, I'm like, oh wow, like Shanks, Lucky Roo, Yasop, and Ben Beckman. But now like I look at this and I'm like, oh, there's Monster and Howling Gab and Building Snake, and you know, like they're real to me now. I appreciate it more. Now we just need a name for that kid in the bar. And I really liked Mint Chocolate's suggestion in the stream of what if that kid's name is Vicky, because we know that one of Oda's biggest inspirations is Vicky the Viking. So this kid could be Victor, or go with the, you know, another translation which would be Wiki. You know, I could see it being Wiki. Vicky is very feminine, but maybe Wiki. You know, something like that. Some way for Oda to just pay homage in that regard. But either way, what this is also setting up on a meta level is when Luffy gets to Elbaf, he's going to have a relationship with this kid that I'm just going to call Wiki for, you know, for now, right? And Luffy and Wiki are going to have a Shanks and Luffy-like relationship. Not to the extent of me believing that Luffy would give the kid his hat, but something along those lines. Like, maybe he does pass the hat along. Maybe we don't go to Elbaf until after, like, the very end of the series so that he can do that passing of the torch. Or we go to Elbaf, he has a relationship with Wiki, and then comes back to Elbaf in the epilogue, and we end the story with him, like, putting this small hat on this giant child. I don't know, I have so many like ideas and things and scenarios that are running through my head right now, but either way, guaranteed Luffy and this giant kid are going to have a very strong relationship when we get into this arc. Is Shanks even going to be here when we do get here? I don't know. I don't know about that. It was also brought up in the stream, I think by Brandon, what if the Oro Jackson is on Elbaf? And that becomes like part of Frankie's journey as the successor of Tom, seeing the ship that did cross everything and make it to the final island. And then that made me think, what if everything in Egghead is actually going to, you know, now that we have like 100 ships coming, what if the Sunny gets severely damaged to the point of whoever is guarding and protecting the Oro Jackson allows Frankie and the rest of the crew to essentially disassemble parts of the Oro Jackson, which was also confirmed to have been made with the same wood, the atom wood of the Thousand Sunny. Take that wood and use it to repair the Sunny and make it part of like whatever narrative Oda is shaping up with why Frankie's wanted poster is now a picture of the Sunny. something, I don't have all of the pieces to it, but I think that would be like a fun way to tie things together, if that's the case. Just fun ideas throwing out. Moving on to the rest of 1076, all of the stuff with Lucci, Kaku, Luffy, and Zoro, complete and total fan service. You know, I said it during the stream, but I was like, if you told me that this would happen back in Water 7 Ennie's lobby, I might have said, maybe. I mean, it's a very Oda thing to do, but like still just seeing it is very surreal. But one of the wildest things in the chapter was getting the confirmation that the Mihawk Seraphim S-Hawk does have the Supa no Mi, the Dice fruit, Mr. One's Devil Fruit. Now, we had discussed this as a possibility. My favorite possibility was that it could have had Jozu's fruit, and then Zoro would have to fight something Diamond, right? I kept saying that there were going to be like Mr. One parallels here, but now Zoro is literally fighting someone that looks like and has the lineage factor of the person that he wants to beat, right, in order to achieve his dream. The DNA of the person that he just fought, and then the devil fruit of the person who arguably tested him more than any other villain. So it's just all three people wrapped in one. And this is incredible. I don't think necessarily that I would want it to be a tag team with Kaku. I would rather like Zoro have to do this on his own, but it's still fun. It's still a lot of fun. A lot of people, you know, got on me saying, does S-Hawk need a devil fruit? I was like, he's got the green blood. We have the confirmation that it's there. We just don't know what fruit it is yet. So,
another one.
S-Hawk has a devil fruit. Also, Luffy's savage smack talking in this chapter.
Savage.
A1. A man turned to Lucci and was like, look, I'm going to uncuff you. All right? And I'm going to do this. And you're not going to go after any of my people. Okay? Because you got to beat me first, which I know you can't do.
Savage.
And Lucci's like, all right, I won't go out of order. I'm going to fight you first. Yeah, I'm going to take you out. You're my priority anyway. Luffy's basically like, hey, look, if you want round 2,
Savage.
that's fine. It's going to go exactly the same way as round 1 went. You okay with that?
Savage.
I'm going to uncuff you anyway, but I'm just letting you know. And because this chapter wasn't crazy enough, we get the reveal that all of the supposedly dead Cypher Pole agents aren't dead. They've been kept in a secret prison within Egghead. I mean, that's just typical Oda, right? Why would we ever think some people were dead? This seems so obvious to me in hindsight that they wouldn't be dead, but this whole disappearance of the Cypher Pole agents to begin with was part of what led me to believe that there had to be a traitor right from the beginning of the arc to begin with. So for these agents to be trapped on Egghead for 2 months, and for Vegapunk, who has complete and total autonomy over the island, to not know that this was here, even though he's got other hidden pockets of the island that, you know, house 900-year-old giants and things like that, what could possibly be going on here? We were coming up with a bunch of ideas in the stream, and, you know, it had been brought up a bunch of times. There is still another part of Vegapunk's brain in Punk Records that hasn't really been addressed, but, you know, was mentioned and then just never really talked about again. So what we have here is like Skynet becoming self-aware, or as Dizza brought up in the stream, HAL 9000 from, you know, 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is probably even more apt. Like, there could be a situation where part of Vegapunk's brain, and, you know, not necessarily going to get into a full anatomy class and everything, but I mean, like, if you're chopping up your brain, like, there are certain parts that are going to have stronger reactions to certain things. Like, someone is going to have stronger memories than everyone else. Someone is going to have the amygdala, the part of the brain that is, like, prone to anger, which it seems like Lilith is probably like that. But what if this brain that's in Punk Records is essentially deciding that what Vegapunk is doing is wrong, or going down the right path the wrong way, like most villains and most characters in One Piece do? So there's a situation where it's none of the characters that we've been introduced to, and it's something new. Now, I still like the idea of it being either Lilith or Edison. We've talked about this. Lilith is the obvious choice, and Oda could always go back to that. Edison, during key moments where things happened, was mysteriously missing, and he's always talking about different inventions that he's got to make. So it could be an interesting switcheroo there. A lot of people think Shaka. I am not on the Shaka is bad train. I'm not. And I'll take the L if I'm wrong, but I mean, like, I really don't think that it's Shaka. It would be top 10 anime betrayals, but Shaka would not have given us as much information about like Saul and everything like that. It's too Bond villain, like James Bond villain. Like, you don't do that speech without at the end saying, "Oh yeah, and I'm the bad guy, by the way." What does this mean for my idea that the Blackbeard Pirates could show up on Egghead? It doesn't really change much for me. It just means that they weren't responsible for this particular kidnapping of Vegapunk. But with how much Blackbeard wants the Mero Mero no Mi, and Vegapunk being able to reproduce that fruit, or him going directly for S-Snake to begin with, there's still a strong possibility for that if Oda wants to tie everything together. What do I expect in 1077? Definitely an update on the Marines. Okay, so Oda has been doing this thing for the past couple of chapters where he starts us in Egghead, right? And then whatever he ended on in Egghead is what he expands upon in the next chapter, even though the last couple of pages of the chapter are taking us somewhere else. Previously, we were with Vivi and Wapol. Now we just saw Shanks, Dorry, and Brogy. So we could get a cross-guild update in the next chapter as well. Like, we could move there, because if we're moving across the journey of the Grand Line, right? Reverse Mountain, everything like that, Whiskey Peak, that's where, you know, all the Vivi business kind of started. And, you know, you have Wapol there as well, but, you know, it's kind of like a lot of updates on the Alabasta saga. So now let's go and update ourselves on Mr. 3 and Crocodile, right? Like, that seems like that could be the narrative direction. I don't think we're going to go right back to Elbaf. It would be great if we did go right back to Elbaf and he did expand upon this and we did get maybe an entire chapter of Kid versus Shanks, like we did with Law versus Blackbeard. There's a possibility for that, but the trend has been that we start with the last thing that is more relevant to Egghead. So that's the 100 ships showing up. So fully expecting to see who's on some of those ships, who are the vice admirals that are coming, and kind of getting an update on how close they actually are. And that's gonna wrap things up, guys. Like, comment, subscribe if you are feeling the vibe. Shout out to everybody that supports the channel. Thank you so much. Shout out to all of the new members, including the 20 new members. Thanks to Fable, aka Elbafy. He came through swinging because we landed in Elbaf. And those new, completely new or returning members are Jomalomo, LJ916, JP, Sheesh, the Panda, Wrench Dodger 2000, Chin-Ho Wong, Six Pains, Neil Tame, Sean McDonough, Adam Cahoon, The Will of Dreams, Yoda de Tweed, Don Masama, Spicy Kimchi, Jay Chizemp, Tage Graham, Carlos Diaz, Court Press 87, Carmelo Smith, Pirate, Davon, aka Schoolboy Beats, Panic Pikachu, Hito Fruit Model Reaper, Circular, Law is Sauce McGee, Austin F, and Trey Bird. Okay, and to everybody that supports, thank you so much, guys. There's a break this week, so I'm going to set up a theory for theory, and I can probably get some content out without worrying about the spoilers coming out 10 minutes later. So I'd like to do another video. Maybe I'll do one on Smoker. I've been wanting to do a video on Smoker and what his role could be, you know, upcoming in Egghead. And it feels like now is the right time with the ships getting closer. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you soon. Later.
be swimming deep, deep. Savage.